What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel, and welcome back to another True Crime Sunday. I am just filming this video before I have to go into uni in a couple of hours, so hopefully I can get this all done. Semester has just started, so please be patient and kind with me. Today is going to be a little bit of a different one. There are many victims in this story that I'm going to tell you, and it's actually going to connect into next week's True Crime Sunday. I'm so sorry that you keep wobbling, but you're on my bed and we've had that roommate issue where I can't film outside, so we're filming in my bedroom. Someone picked up in my last video that you heard lots of like planes flying. For some reason you can hear that in my room. You don't really hear that so much out in the place where I used to film, but you can definitely hear it out here. So I do actually have to take lots of breaks when I'm filming, just because my room picks up so much sound, so I'm always pausing and I'm trying really hard to make sure that there's no flying airplane noises in there. So I'm sorry you could pick that up in the last one, but girl, just know that I'm trying. So today we're going to be talking about, and I picked this up in the news. Okay, let me just preface before I get into the video. This video that I've made is something that I picked up on the news, and then I got into like literally the depths of the internet and found things that connected to this case. And then after that I found a possible murder case that actually directly relates to it, and that's what's going to be next week's video. So this is going to be one of those ones where it's like, if you follow the trail, you know what I'm trying? I'm gonna pick up. When you die, where do you go? Science says that energy doesn't die. It can't die. Science says that energy simply moves on. We don't know what happens to your consciousness, but we do know what happens with the human body. And science is moving toward things that would suggest that our consciousness is classified as energy. Every single thing in this world is made up of energy. Our bodies, my phone, these plants, my pillows, all of it is made up by tiny little molecule thingos. Really bad way to explain that, but. So when you're buried, your physical body, the energy from that actually transforms and nourishes the soil. Everything moves on. It just transforms into a different form of energy. When you're cremated, your body turns into a powder form. But what if you want your body to benefit somebody else? We know that if you donate your organs when you die, you have the opportunity to help someone else's life, or possibly even save someone's life. You also have the opportunity to be useful in training cadaver dogs when you die. And when you donate your entire body, you can help train doctors, you can help medical science, and helping find cures for diseases that we as a society, as a race, are struggling to beat or even to understand. So wanting to donate either your organs or your entire body seems like a really noble thing to do, especially if in your life you have been someone who wanted to help all of these people, or did help a lot of people, or did donate to certain things like Alzheimer's, leukemia, things like that. Or maybe you know someone who was like that, who died, and you decided, or at least you as a loved one didn't have the funds to get your loved one cremated, to have them buried. Maybe you didn't have the funds, and so maybe you gave consent for your loved one to have their body donated because you're thinking that that's what they would have wanted. There would be a company who would come and collect your loved one's body, and in turn they promise that your loved one will be respected, cared for, and their donation, their body, would be given to science, would be given to help people who need it the most. You would be donating your loved one for a better cause. And the parts that they can't use would be cremated. and in a couple of weeks you would get an urn that they're happy to pay for that had the remains, the cremated remains of your loved one. This sounds like a really good deal. On one hand, you're helping science. On another hand, maybe you don't have the funds to get your loved one cremated. So the parts that they can't use, they're offering to cremate for free and to give you the urn for free. It sounds like a really good deal, especially for someone of a lower socioeconomic background. So you would end up with cremated remains in an urn, and that urn would still be there with you. Your loved one would be there with you, possibly even your soulmate, maybe your daughter, maybe your son, maybe your mother, maybe your father. That loved one is in that urn. You've got them maybe in your lounge room, maybe in your study, and they're always there with you. But what if that urn housed a body that wasn't your loved one? What if this whole time you had been talking to this urn that housed what you thought was your loved one? What if it actually housed a couple of different people? And what if none of them was actually your loved one?
The need for whole-body donors has never been greater. Biological Resource Center connects those who wish to donate their body to science with medical research and education facilities. Your donation can help save lives and make a difference. Why do people choose to donate their body to science? To help others? To give to the future? And to leave a legacy of education and research for future generations. Donors contribute to the understanding of diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, the education of physicians and first responders, and the development of new surgical procedures, medical devices, and improved medicines. The impact of donation is huge. It's a gift from one generation to the next. Once accepted as a donor at Biological Resource Center, there is no cost to you or your family.
BRC was a godsend to me at a very difficult time. My mom loved helping others. When she passed, I was able to honor her wish to help others one last time. The staff at BRC was respectful, courteous, and caring. I appreciated that.
Let your gift be your legacy. It's an honor to serve you. To register yourself or a loved one as a donor, or for more information, please contact Biological Resource Center.
What if you turned on the TV shortly after receiving this urn and you saw on the news the FBI was raiding the place you donated your loved one's body to? Say for instance your wife died of cancer and you donated her body thinking that she was going to help find a cure for cancer even in death. But what if she turned into something else? What if she didn't even go towards the cause? And what if you found out that your daughter, the place that you trusted, where they said that they would care for your loved one's body, and you found out that she had actually been dissected not with a scalpel, but with a chainsaw? And what if someone decapitated your brother's body, and in place of his head, they took someone's daughter's head and sewed it on there and hung it from a wall? What if you unknowingly sent your loved one to a place where their limbs would be thrown in a pile with no identification tags and no care? Phoenix, Arizona, the Biological Resource Center. For the sake of this video, we're going to abbreviate that to the BRC. Now, Stefan Gore didn't just run the Biological Resource Center. He also ran a funeral home and a healthcare company. The BRC claimed to have been running on solely medical and research purposes. So for years, people were sending their loved ones off to the BRC, thinking that they were doing the right thing, thinking they were doing what their loved one would have wanted. But there was no research. There was no groundbreaking discoveries being made at the BRC. Instead, this would be a place of horrors. There were hundreds of bodies in the BRC, and none of them were dissected with a scalpel. They used chainsaws and other tools that were not appropriate for the dissection of a body. In fact, the BRC was a purely for-profit organization, and the families that gave the loved ones' bodies to the BRC were told that it was not a profit organization, that they would not resell the body parts of their loved one. However, they were selling body parts, and then the parts that they couldn't sell, they were literally playing with. One man's body parts were sold to a company in Illinois, and then the Illinois company then sold it to a company in Michigan. So the wife of this man received an urn with cremated body parts that didn't even belong to her husband. Some of the body parts were sold to companies that would test car crashes. So they would put the actual bodies in the car, crash the car, and see what would happen. Some of the bodies were then sold to the American Defense Force to be blown up or used for ballistics testing. The US Defense Force actually requires a loved one to sign a consent form for this to happen, because it is a pretty demeaning and, I don't know, hectic thing to do to your loved one. So they require a consent form. However, none of the loved ones even knew that their loved one's body was going to be used for ballistics testing or blown up in a field. So who signed that consent form? So what exactly happened? The FBI started a large-scale investigation into the trafficking of human body parts. They started their investigation in Detroit in a similar kind of body donation organization. And this was after a man named Arthur Rathburn tried to ship body parts in a metro airport. He was caught because blood leaked from one of the boxes, and the people putting the cargo onto the plane were like, and then they reported it. From there, it took 2 days for investigators to raid the center that this man operated from, and they all had to wear hazmat suits, and there were literally thousands of bodies there. The bodies were not embalmed, which meant that they were on ice because they were needing to be kept fresh to be sold on the black market. So when they seized Arthur's records, they then got a paper trail, which led them onto a whole bunch of different resource centers. That paper trail led investigators to a different biological research center, which was owned by a different man. They raided that BRC, and then the paper trail led them to Phoenix, which is the biological research center that we're talking about in this particular video. They walked into the Phoenix center and found hundreds of bodies stacked on top of each other without any identification tags. They found coolers full of male genitalia. There was also bodily fluids all over the floor. There were piles of limbs that were unrelated to each other, just literally all over the place. There were buckets of heads, many of which were infected, and that is going to be a huge part in this case. They said there were random torsos just out and about in the facility, but the most notable scene, or the most notable room, was when investigators walked into this room. They saw a body literally hanging from the wall, but the body was that of a really large man, and he had been decapitated. And these people sewed this young woman's, this young girl's head onto this large body, and it was supposed to be, I don't know, some sort of morbid joke, but they were absolutely terrified. As I said in the start of the video, they didn't use scalpels. There were chainsaws, there were hacksaws. They were dismembering these bodies because it is more profitable to sell body parts rather than selling a full body. During the raid, the FBI confiscated computers, records, 22 full bodies, donor files, and what medical equipment they could find. To make things even more tragic and gross, the health department had to issue a letter or like an official statement to all past and current Biological Research Center employees. This was because a lot of the bodies were infected, visibly infected, but also carried things like HIV, Hep C, Hep B, and tuberculosis. Shockingly, after this raid, the BRC said that they were rebranding and that they were just temporarily closing. This was 5 years ago, but as we know with hindsight, they never actually reopened, and for a good reason. But they had the nerve to say that they were just rebranding. The owner, Stefan Gore, said that it was overwhelming running a business that had no oversight. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 4 years probation, but he didn't end up serving that 1 year because of good behavior. In court, he admitted that he did sell bodies that were infected and carried diseases. He said that he knowingly sold them and did not disclose that to the buyers. In 2 of the confirmed cases that we are aware of, because this is still an ongoing investigation, 2 of the cases were HIV and hepatitis C. But as of 2016 reports, there have been no BRC employee or no entity which bought bodies from BRC who've actually filed any complaints against them. But the families of these victims, of all of the people that were sent there to be sold or to be played with, are filing a lawsuit against the BRC. And the attorney who was handling some of the cases said that a body could be worth from $10,000 to $50,000 depending. He said that a body is worth more when it is cut up into body parts rather than being a full body. And one of the most common things that I've heard from the family members is the fact that they've been talking to someone who isn't even the person, who isn't even their family member. The full bodies that were confiscated by the state have been identified. And at first the state said that they couldn't release the bodies unless there was some sort of court order because the bodies were classified as evidence. But after a while they said that the families could have their loved one back, but that they had to pay for the state to release them. A lot of these people don't even have the money to get their loved one cremated in the first place, which is why they chose to donate the body. So how did the state think that they're going to be able to pay to get their loved one back? There are 5 separate locations which are being investigated by the FBI. I'm going to read out which ones they are. The 5 different locations which are being investigated by the FBI are the Biological Research Center, Arizona, the Biological Research Center, Illinois, the International Biological Incorporation in Detroit, the Arthroscopy Association, Illinois, and the Anatomical Service of Illinois. So why do a 2-part video? Well, I thought that this would be a good true crime video on its own, but with all of the different digging and researching and just being in the depths of the internet, I found a connection to a really well-known case. A lot of people think that this young woman's death was an accident, and there are also a couple of other theories. So this True Crime Sunday is going to be related to next True Crime Sunday. But this is where I leave you this week, and I hope you stay tuned for next week's video. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really does help. Leave a comment down below if you want me to cover any missing persons cases or mystery cases or murder cases, and I might just jump on there. If you want to be a nice guy and subscribe, I do a True Crime Sunday every Sunday, and I do a regular video every Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.